My perfect sister used me as a punching bag and acted like an angel around our parents. I stayed quiet until she slipped. I exposed her. It worked. Now she's back, and I know what she wants. My older sister used to pinch me hard enough to make me bleed. One time, I used her hairbrush without asking, and she pinched my arm so fiercely that I went to basketball practice looking like I'd been attacked by a wild animal. She always said my gross little brother germs ruined all her precious stuff. By the time I turned Ridgewood, I was just tired of it all. It all really started when I accidentally left the bathroom door unlocked. She came in while I was showering and started pinching my back until I screamed. But that time, I was ready. I grabbed her wrist and pinched her back, except it didn't feel like I thought it would. Instead of satisfaction, I just felt guilty. I cried for being a terrible brother and let her pinch me 10 times harder. Don't get me wrong, I loved my parents, but I know they saw the bruises, the nail marks. I know they heard me crying in my room after her attacks. They never did anything, though, because to them she was the social butterfly who kept up the image of our perfect family. At school, she acted like the caring older sister, holding my hand in the hallways, introducing me as her favorite little brother. It was disgusting. Still, something good came out of it, my pain tolerance. I channeled all the pain into sports. By 16, I was leading the basketball team and taking hits that knocked out other guys. At the time, she was in her final year, one grade above me, and I kept hearing the drama going on with her friends. By then, the pinching had mostly stopped, partly because I'd gotten bigger, and partly because I still hoped we could have a normal sibling relationship. So when all her friends skipped her 18th birthday party to go to Brianna's instead, I felt like I had to help. Brianna and my sister had been fighting over a guy named Logan. My sister spent the whole morning crying because no one wanted to come to her party. I spent the whole day fixing it. I told everyone, my basketball friends, kids from other schools, even some college freshmen, that there'd be free alcohol and good music. By 7 p.m., around 35 people had shown up. The party was amazing. She pulled me into the crowd around 9, crying happy tears this time, and told everyone I was the best brother ever. We even did shots together. She told everyone how I'd saved her birthday. For the first time ever, it felt like we were really brother and sister. Or so I thought. Because around 10 p.m., Logan, who turned out to be Brianna's cousin, showed up drunk with his new girlfriend. He yelled that my sister was so desperate, she had to get her loser brother to beg people to come. He claimed I paid random freshmen to act like they liked her. The party ended in 20 minutes. She didn't say a word to me for 2 days. Then on the night our parents went out to celebrate her birthday, she knocked on my door. "Can we talk?" she asked sweetly. As soon as I opened it, she shoved me into the wall. "Did you know Logan was Brianna's cousin? You invited him just to humiliate me. You've always been jealous because I'm the favorite." I still had the straightening iron in my hand. It was hot from doing my hair, and before I could process anything, she threw it at my face. "You ruined my life." I ducked, but she pressed the hot iron against my neck. There was a sharp hiss, and then I let out the worst scream of my life. Blisters started forming immediately. She ran to the bathroom and threw up. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and called 911. The burn ended up being 3rd degree. At the ER while she was being evaluated for skin grafts, I just told my parents to check their phones. Years of text messages lit up, messages where she bragged about making me cry, where she called me her practice doll for when she had real problems, photos of my bruises that she'd sent to group chats, followed by laughing emojis. My dad went pale, my mom started crying. They separated us in the hospital. A nurse took me to another room while they treated my sister's neck. I sat there for 3 hours, answering the same questions over and over again. The police arrived around 1:30 a.m. 2 exhausted officers asked me to tell them everything. I showed them my phone, years of messages I'd saved since I was 12, just in case someone ever asked about the bruises. One of the officers' jaws clenched while reading them. His face got darker with every message. My parents came to the police station after 3 a.m. Mom's mascara had smeared down her cheeks. Dad kept running his hands through his hair, messing it up in all directions. Neither of them looked at me. The detective assigned to our case was named Monica. She had kind eyes but asked really hard questions. She wanted to know everything I could remember. Every pinch, every bruise, every time my parents saw it and said nothing. I told her about the basketball games, about the shower, about how my sister would smile during school meetings while digging her nails into my arm under the table. Monica wrote everything down in her little notebook. The next morning, Child Protection Services got involved. A young social worker named Nicholas came to the house for interviews. He was younger than I expected, but he was ready to unpack all the damage I'd spent years hiding under long sleeves and fake smiles. Maybe he was about 30, and his voice was so soft it made me want to tell him everything. My sister came back home 2 days after being in the hospital. Her neck was wrapped in thick white gauze. She couldn't turn her head without wincing in pain. The doctors said she would need several surgeries, and the scars would be permanent. She moved into the guest room. Mom quit her job just to help her change bandages and take care of her. I could hear them talking in quiet voices through the walls. Sometimes my sister cried. Not the fake tears she used to get her way, but actual tears of pain. Nicholas started visiting us twice a week. He spoke to each of us one-on-one, and then with the whole family. My parents had to attend mandatory therapy sessions. It was a court order. They went every Tuesday and Thursday, and they always came back with red eyes and tight lips. School felt strange. People talked about what happened, but the details were all over the place. Some kids accused me of attacking my sister. Others said she had hurt herself. One day, Brianna came up to me in the hallway, looking awkward. "Logan feels bad about what he said at the party," she mumbled. "He was drunk. He didn't mean to start all that." I just said, "Okay." What else was I supposed to say? That his drunk yelling kicked off the worst night of my life? That my sister would have scars forever because of a birthday party? Basketball practice became my escape. After the first session, coach pulled me aside and asked if I needed a break. I told him I needed to play now more than ever. He understood. He let me stay late, shooting free throws until the janitor made me leave. 3 weeks after it all happened, my sister started physical therapy. The burn had damaged some nerves. She had trouble moving her neck in certain directions. I drove her to her appointments because our parents were at work. We sat in silence for the 30-minute ride. One day she finally spoke. "I know you hate me." I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "You should," she said, her voice flat. "I've been horrible to you." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to list every awful thing she had ever done, but watching her struggle to move her neck and seeing her get frustrated during therapy made that feeling fade. 6 weeks after the incident, Monica called for a family meeting. She brought another social worker, an older woman named Kathy, who specialized in family trauma. They sat with us in the living room. "We need to talk about long-term plans," Monica said. "There's a criminal investigation, yes, but we also need to focus on healing as a family." My sister had to go to court-ordered anger management classes, just like my parents had to go to therapy. I went every Monday afternoon. Sometimes I saw her notebook on the table, filled with worksheets about identifying triggers and handling emotions. The investigation uncovered more than anyone expected. Monica interviewed my sister's friends. Some of them admitted they had felt uncomfortable about the way she treated me. One girl, Kate, even had saved screenshots of some really cruel messages. She had wanted to show someone but never did. My parents had to face the truth. The social workers didn't sugarcoat anything. They hadn't protected me. They had let my sister's behavior go on for years. Dad broke down in a session, saying he had always known something was wrong but just didn't want to believe his daughter could be abusive. 3 months passed. When the bandages finally came off, my sister's neck was covered in red scars. She started wearing high-neck shirts and scarves, even on hot days. Her friends stopped visiting as often. The girl who once ruled the school became someone people whispered about in the hallways. We had dinner together every night, another court order, supervised family time. Sometimes Nicholas or Kathy joined us, quietly watching how we interacted. The conversations were careful and forced. We only talked about safe topics like the weather, sports, or whatever show was trending. One night during dinner, my sister dropped her fork. The sound made everyone flinch. She bent down to pick it up but froze halfway, her hand going to her neck. The scar tissue didn't stretch like normal skin. I wanted to help, but she held out her hand. "I've got it." Her voice was tight. She picked up the fork, but when she sat back up, tears were streaming down her face. Mom reached out, but my sister stepped away. "Don't," she said. "Just don't." She got up from the table and left her plate untouched. We heard her door close down the hall. Nicholas quietly made notes in his folder. He always brought that folder. He never talked much, just observed and wrote things down. The next morning, I found my sister in the kitchen at 5 a.m. She was trying to make coffee but couldn't tilt her head back far enough to see if she'd filled the machine correctly. Water had spilled everywhere. "Let me help you," I said. She stepped aside without saying a word, without arguing. That was the moment I noticed the bruises on her arms. They were recent, purple and yellow marks, shaped exactly like fingerprints. "What happened to your arms?" I asked. She pulled her sleeves down quickly. "Nothing," she said. "I just bruise easily now. The meds make my skin sensitive, but I recognize those marks too well. I'd had enough of them to know exactly what they looked like." Someone had grabbed her. Hard. Later that day at school, I saw Chloe, her former best friend, pressing her up against the lockers. Chloe was waving her arms, clearly yelling, getting in her face, and my sister just stood there, frozen, taking it. The same girl who used to rule these hallways, who used to make people move with a single look. She couldn't even lift her voice to defend herself now. I walked over. "Is everything okay here?" I asked. Chloe turned to me. "Oh look," she said, mocking. "The victim's here to save his psycho sister. How adorable." We're leaving, I said, gently guiding my sister away. She didn't resist. That afternoon in the car, she stared out the window. Everyone hates me, she mumbled. Everyone at school thinks I'm a monster. She paused, then added quietly, Chloe grabbed me yesterday. She said I deserve worse than a scar, said she wishes the iron had hit me in the face. I didn't know what to say. Honestly, I couldn't blame people for being angry. My sister had hurt a lot of people. It hadn't just been me. But seeing her like that, shaken, vulnerable, clearly scared, it pressed something tight in my chest. Monica scheduled an emergency family session later that week. She said she'd gotten reports from the school about rising bullying and harassment. My sister sat hunched over in her chair, looking smaller than ever. We need to talk about alternative education options, Monica said gently. The school environment is clearly not supporting her recovery. My parents exchanged tired looks. Mom finally said, we can't afford private school. There are online programs, Monica suggested, or a transfer to Westfield High, across town. It's public and has a good support staff, but my sister shook her head right away. I've got 3 months left. I can handle it. But the sign said otherwise. The next week, someone spray-painted abuser on her locker. The janitor tried to clean it off, but the letters still faintly showed through the paint. She stopped going to the cafeteria and started eating in the nurse's office. Whenever our schedules lined up, I walked her to class. I sat with her during lunch if the nurse wasn't there. I just didn't want her to sit alone. My basketball teammates didn't understand. Why do you even protect her? Dylan asked me during practice. After everything she's done to you, I missed the shot. She's still my sister, I said quietly. Another teammate chimed in. She's getting what she deserves. Coach heard it and made the whole team run suicides. We don't kick people when they're already on the floor, he said. That's not how this team works. But at home, the tension only got worse. Our parents started fighting, more often, more loudly. I'd hear them yelling late at night, Mom accusing Dad of ignoring the signs, Dad blaming Mom for covering for her. They both sounded exhausted and guilty. One night, I heard something crash. The next morning, Dad was sleeping on the living room couch, and he never went back upstairs after that. Nicholas increased his visits to 3 times a week. The court was monitoring us closely. There was even talk of extending the supervision period. Mom and Dad had to submit weekly reports on our family's progress. Meanwhile, my sister's physical therapy wasn't going great either. The therapist said she was developing bad movement patterns, ways to avoid pain that could hurt her long term. She was supposed to keep stretching at home, but she'd mostly given up. So I started going to her room after dinner. I'd bring the printed therapy guide, sit with her on the floor, and help her through the stretches. At first she resisted, then eventually she gave in. I'd count the reps while she winced and breathed through the pain. One night, as we sat there, she asked me, do you remember when we used to play board games? Yeah, I said. I remembered. Back when we were close, before high school happened, before everything shifted, before she looked at me like I was something she was ashamed of. What happened? I asked. When did you start hating me? She stayed quiet for a long time, then finally whispered, I never hated you. I hated that you were better than me. Her voice shook a little. You were kinder, more real. People liked you because of who you were. People liked me because they were afraid not to. Her words just hung in the air between us. I helped her with the final stretch. Her face twisted in pain as the scar tissue pulled. 2 weeks before graduation, everything fell apart. She was keeping a low profile, trying to get through it quietly, and then someone leaked screenshots online. All the awful things she had ever said about me. All the photos of my bruises she'd sent around. All the messages. It went viral within our school community. And once that happened, it was out of control. Parents started demanding she be expelled. The school held an emergency meeting on cyberbullying. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. That night, my sister didn't come home. My parents called the police around midnight. I got in the car and started driving, checking all the places I could think of. The playground we used to go to. The beach we visited as a family. The train bridge just outside of town. That's where I found her. She was sitting on the hood of her car, legs hanging over the side. The fall wouldn't have killed her, but it would have done damage. And we both knew how much damage can change a person. Don't do it, I said, stepping closer. She didn't move. I wasn't going to jump, she said softly. I just needed some space to think. So I climbed up beside her, and we sat together in silence, looking out at nothing. We stayed there for about an hour. No talking, no crying, just existing in the space between what it had been and what it could have been. I'm sorry, she said at last, for everything. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I wanted you to know. I know, I told her, and I meant it. The apology didn't erase the damage, not the scars, not the years, but it was a beginning, a first step. We drove home separately. When we arrived, our parents were waiting with 2 police officers. Even when someone returns on their own, missing person protocols still apply. more paperwork, more explaining. Monica made arrangements for my sister to finish school from home. The principal agreed it was best for everyone. She'd receive her diploma, but she wouldn't walk at graduation. Another quiet result of that night with the iron. Having her home during the day made the house feel strange but calmer somehow. She mostly stayed in her room, doing homework and joining virtual anger management sessions. Between my classes and basketball, I'd check in on her. Sometimes I caught her doing her physical therapy on her own. Other times, she just stared at her reflection, slowly tracing the scars on her neck. Our parents' marriage felt like it was barely holding together. They'd started couples therapy. Some nights, Dad still slept on the couch. Mom didn't bother with real dinners anymore. We mostly lived on takeout and whatever was in the freezer. One day, Nicholas asked to speak with me alone. "How are you doing with all this?" he asked. "I'm fine," I said without thinking. "It's okay if you're not," he said. "You've been through a lot, your feelings count too." But how could I explain the guilt that lived in me like a stone? If I hadn't ducked that night, none of this would have happened. She'd be walking at graduation. Our family might not be under court watch. My parents might still smile at each other. I knew it wasn't my fault, she threw the iron, but knowing didn't make it easier to carry. Basketball season ended with us making it to regionals. I played terribly. Couldn't focus. Couldn't stop thinking about her sitting home alone while the rest of us celebrated. We lost by 12. Coach found me in the locker room afterward. "You've got a lot on your shoulders," he said, "but you can't carry other people's consequences. That's not yours to hold." He was right, but that didn't make it easier to see her struggle. The girl who'd spent years making my life hell was now someone I worried about constantly. The irony wasn't lost on me. Graduation day came hot and bright, the kind of May heat that sticks to your clothes. I pulled on my cap and gown, trying to feel something. Mom and Dad came, but sat on opposite sides of the auditorium. My sister stayed home. As I crossed the stage, I couldn't stop picturing her alone in her room, watching classmates post stories of the celebration. A part of me wanted to skip the after parties, just go home. But Nicholas had been clear, you still get to live your life. So I went to Dylan's party, tried to laugh, tried to be normal, then someone made a joke about crazy sisters, and I left. I ended up driving home, still in my graduation gown. In the backyard, I found her in the garden, planting flowers in Mom's half-dead flower bed. Her therapist had suggested gardening to help with neck mobility. She looked up as I came through the gate. "Shouldn't you be out celebrating?" she asked. "I felt like planting," I said, grabbing a small shovel. We worked in silence, petunias and marigolds, dirt under our nails. The sun was out, and sweat made the scars on her neck shine. When we were done, she just looked at me and said, "Thanks." That night, for the first time in months, we all had dinner together. Just us, no social worker, no supervision. Dad came home early. Mom cooked. We sat in our usual places. The empty chair where Nicholas used to sit almost felt like it still carried his presence. "They accepted me," I said. "Full scholarship, basketball." I'd kept it to myself for a while, wasn't sure why. Maybe I was waiting for the right moment. My parents smiled, really smiled. Even my sister looked proud, though her eyes carried something else too. "That's amazing," she said. "You really deserve it." Later that night, she knocked on my door. "Can I ask you something?" she said. I let her in. She sat on the edge of my bed, picking at a loose thread on the blanket. "Do you think we'll ever be normal again?" she asked. "Our family, I mean." I thought about giving her something soft, something hopeful, but we'd already told too many lies to each other over the years. "I don't know," I said, "but maybe we can be something else, something better." She nodded slowly. She understood. We'd never have what we could have had. Too much had happened, but maybe, from the wreckage, we could build something new. The next week, Monica made her final visit. The court supervision was officially ending. We'd met every requirement. The investigation had closed without charges. Just therapy, just time. "You've all made a lot of progress," she said. "But the truth is, the hard part starts now, and somehow that felt true, and somehow we were ready.